Hi, shut up about it. Anyways, so I've been waiting to make a video, mainly because I have nothing to say. I have no motivation, and I'm struggling with, like, what do I want to say? All this to say, I finally found something, and it's the stupidest thing it could be, so strap in. I watch a lot of, YouTube, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and lately I've been listening to, pretty much since it came out, there's a podcast slash talk show on YouTube called Very Delta. Very Delta stars a drag queen named Delta Work, and she's great. I love the show. She's funny and insightful, and, like, weirdly, and I would say this is the biggest points in her favor, because, like, let's all face it, the worst part of, like, talk shows slash podcasts is, like, the guests, usually. Usually it's just, like, a new dynamic. It's weird. We're not there for them. And, like, unless it's a celebrity you are actually curious about, it can be a little bit of a slog where it's like, oh, the second the solo segment's over, the second the guest comes in, you're sort of like, well, bye. But she manages to make it wonderful. Like, it's fun to listen to all the way through. She's got a really good rapport with the guests. That's not the issue. My issue, and I even hesitate to call it an issue, just sort of an observation, is that Delta has a lot of interesting thoughts on service workers. And when I say that, I think a lot of people jump to, like, Karen. And I wouldn't go that far. But let's back up. At the start of every episode of Very Delta, she has a segment called Go Off Delta. I love it. It's funny. It's great. I can't stress how much I actually do like the show and like Delta Work. But a lot of these Go Off Delta segments center around, like, service workers, or rather service experiences. Things like going to a department store, going to a fast food chain, basic things, like day-to-day things. I'm in a Kohl's and this happens. I go to Macy's and this happens, and I'm going to tell you about it. And it's usually punctuated by, like, her sort of scathing thoughts on the matter, of, like, this is where it went wrong, and this is where these people went wrong. And I think people love Delta because she's persnickety and, that's, I think, a little too far. Particular. Delta likes things a certain way, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think most people, if they're being honest, are that way. So that's not my issue. So then what is my issue? At some point in the chain of thought that Delta's having, there is a disagreement I have, like a fundamental disagreement, and it gave me a thought, and I thought, oh my god, I actually want to make a video. Like, finally, I'm going to sit down, I'm just going to do it right now. So that's why I'm not at all ready. I haven't set anything up. Not that I normally do anything amazing. But to give you a sort of primer, because I'm sure you're like, I don't know who Delta Work is. I don't know what you're talking about. What kinds of stories? Here we go. A lot of Delta's stories sort of center around customer service based experiences. Going somewhere and maybe someone is rude or unhelpful, or there's sort of a lapse in service somewhere along the chain that upsets her. And she'll usually follow up telling the story with, like, this is a problem. Why is no one doing anything? And I think that's where a lot of people might get, like, a Karen vibe. Like, oh, here we go. Like, here comes Karen. And I can tell that Delta sort of balks at that and says, no. That's not what this is. I'll be a Karen if I have to be a Karen, if someone's being rude to me. Delta herself will probably not agree with me. And maybe even a lot of people. I don't really know. I only have my experiences to pull from. But, in my opinion, I think she draws some inaccurate or we'll say unfulfilled, they're not full enough, conclusions. Because a lot of the things that she notices, she'll sort of state a reason why they might be happening, and her solution, or at least an idea of a solution, and I just think somewhere along the line it breaks down. I'm talking in circles here. I'm going to say that I can tell that Delta may not be a Karen, and may not even empathize with the Karen culture concept. But she certainly has an air, and maybe it's just me, and maybe it's something I'm getting, of like, well, I'm not a Karen, but, these service workers sure are getting uppity. It's, now you can't even say when someone is rude to you or when someone provides you bad service, because in this climate, in this culture, it's, just, you can't, no, hush up, Karen. And I can tell that she sort of has this attitude, or in my opinion, it started to rub me the wrong way. And she would tell more of these stories. And for full disclosure, I worked pretty much exclusively service worker jobs, or like as a janitor. We're talking bottom rung of food chains here, which is fine. Whatever. No problem with those jobs. No judgment on those jobs. They're great. So my issue is, specifically, the stories will often have like an employee that you would describe as not even necessarily surly, but just sort of apathetic, just kind of checked out, dead behind the eyes, if you will. And I was just watching Delta's newest episode, and she tells a story or she's not really telling a story, she's more bringing up a concept of like, well, when you go to a restaurant and it's polite to say, excuse my reach, if you reach across the table, and they don't do that really. You're paying for the service and you're not really getting the service, and they have these sort of responses that aren't, as polite or as polished as they could be for how much this place costs to go to. The experience I'm getting just isn't fitting that. My problem with that is, I think that there's a disconnect happening where Delta, she will go on, and this does like boil me, it riles me up. She'll go on to be like, and often in these stories, she'll say things like, well, I know that they're underpaid, and I know that they're overworked. And you can tell that she believes that. It's not just sort of lip service. However, she does like sort of a word trick or glossing where she'll say things like that, but then she'll sort of go on to cite what she thinks the issue is, and it's still, in my opinion, incorrect. Because she'll say things like, I never blame the employees. I don't ever blame the employees. It's not their fault. Don't blame the employees. It's the managers. And I think that's wrong too. I just think that's goofy. My manager's probably, 4 years older than me, 5 years older than me. Like, no, it's not them either. They're also probably overworked. They're also probably underpaid. And let's talk about what we're not talking about. I'm not talking about Prada or Gucci or like a 5-star restaurant. I'm talking about Applebee's, Olive Garden, a gas station, even in Macy's, because like department stores are pretty much dead. So like, come on, you should expect the service to not be this like luxury, if it ever even was anymore. What I'm getting at is, she'll say things like, the issue is the training. These employees are not being properly trained, and so it's not their fault. Don't blame them, but they're not being properly trained. And you'd think I'd want to latch onto that as an excuse of like, yeah, that's why they're being, maybe they seem grumpy or they seem apathetic or checked out, is because they're not being trained. Thank you, Delta, for not blaming them. Oh, whew. I don't. I kind of find it infantilizing. I think it's condescending. I think it's sneering. I think it's a way to still pretty much blame the employees, but like sort of throw it on to be like, oh, well, they are doing it wrong, but it's someone else's fault. It's like, no, they're not even doing it wrong though, because she'll often sort of cite this, oh, it's corporate, it's training. Let's talk about that. So it's not, any employee will tell you they're trained of like, say this, don't say this. At our business, we expect this level of service. We're all trained that way. And maybe it lasts for like a week or two with every new hire. But after a certain amount of time, usually pretty quickly, that all falls away. They stop doing those things. They stop saying those things. Or maybe they say a replacement thing. Maybe they're supposed to say, my pleasure, but they say it's no problem when they're asked to do something by a customer. It's just a reflex, they just do it, and it's not the policy. But they know what it is. People know how to be polite, much as we may say and joke like, oh, people these days, what happened to manners? I don't believe that. I think people know what manners are. What the real issue isn't even like, well, the managers aren't training them or they're not getting on them enough. I would rather shoot myself in the head and roll myself into a ditch than have to hear my manager tell me over and over, we don't say, We don't say no problem here. We say my pleasure. Jacob, we don't say no problem. We say my pleasure, Jacob. I don't want to have that conversation 16 times. I think what Delta would say is, well, then fix it. Then do it right. You got the job. We expect a certain level of service. This is what I'm talking about with the glossing. Delta says something like, it's not the employee's fault. Yes, I know. They're probably overworked. Okay, you say that, but then you go on to sort of not factor that in. You sort of attribute the blame to well, it's the training. They're not getting enough of that. The training is all wrong. No, I think it's the thing that you said. I think it's the overwork thing that you said. If I'm being overworked and you agree, like you say you do, oh, well, the workload, you're doing the work of 6 people as one person, you're overworked, then it's not an issue, right? Then you understand why, yeah, I'm going to say no problem instead of my pleasure, even though the policy of this company, our big thing, hell, it could be in the commercials that this is our biggest fucking thing that we do, is we say my pleasure. I don't care if I forgot that. And I truly think you shouldn't care either. Because honestly, at the end of the day, it's okay, so that's the overworked thing that we're not really acknowledging. Then we go to, oh, well, they're underpaid. Well, if I'm underpaid, why are you expecting this? Well, I'm expecting the bare minimum. That's not crazy. Have you done the introspection of going, is the bare minimum worth what they're being underpaid? Is even the bare minimum worth that? Of always remembering to mind your P's and Q's and every customer, gets an equal experience. Theoretically, that's all really nice and that's really cute. If you agree that I'm being underpaid, what's the floor here? If the ceiling is you go above and beyond, every service is a special service. Every service, you try to treat that customer, with a positive attitude. Yeah, that's all great, but what's the floor? Is the floor, well, still you should be, what, manners? Manners are the floor? Honestly, kind of, yes. To the extent that I think Delta wants. I guess I'll say it that, which sounds very pointed towards her. But again, a lot of these stories to me don't sound like, because what I'm not saying is if someone's rude to you, objectively rude in any sort of industry, yeah, absolutely, call that shit out, say something. But I don't think a lot of the time that she's talking about that. I think a lot of the time it's sort of neutral. The person was apathetic or neutral towards her, and that seems to rub her the wrong way. And again, all the glossing of putting it on well, if they got the training, I don't like that as a solution, because that basically says you're overworked, you're underpaid. We all agree, but you need to raise this service level. You're not even hitting the bar, honey. You've got to hit the bar. And I guess, this is where the friction would come in if I was talking to Delta right now. She would say, we just don't agree where that bar is. And I would say, yeah, you're probably right. There are so many reasons why I would accept service that I would consider apathetic. And I think Delta sort of focuses on, well, the solution should be training, or the solution is do your job, basically. To me, they are doing their job. Did you get the thing that you asked for? Did you get the food? Are your drinks being refilled? Those, to me, that's what I care about. I'm going out to eat to do that. And I think one of the refrains that Delta had was, well, if I'm paying this much, I expect X amount of service. You should provide X amount of service, and it's management's job. It's not the employees. Don't blame the employees. It's management's job to facilitate that. Is it though? A, as I've said, how good of an experience do you think the manager's having? Do you think they're that much more in the lap of luxury and that much more in control? B, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of if I work at Michael's craft store and I'm resetting an aisle and my boss has been getting on me because this reset's taking all day because I have to keep stopping because they keep calling me on the walkie, and you, Delta, or anyone, we'll use anyone, walks up and says, hey, I want another of this tchotchke. Do you have one in the back? And I say, oh, I'll go look. And I say it just like that. I'll go look. Just sort of dead-eyed, I'll go look. No, of course. It's my pleasure to go and look. I think Delta would register that as, oh, here we are once again. What happened to manners? What happened to service? And in my head, if an employee were to do that to me, I would go, okay, that's no problem. As long as I get the thing that I want. Because let's take that scenario with the idea of like, I'm paying a certain amount for this service. Let's say it's a 5-star restaurant and your waiter is so polite, so nice, so on the ball. And you're going to tip great, of course. Even if he is all of those things, it doesn't matter. You realize his pay doesn't go up, right? Like the profits of that company of like, if Olive Garden's going to charge me this much for a, soup and salad and this thing and X, Y, and Z, then I would expect at least, a thank you or I'm just asking for a little bit. And it's the managers, the training, and it's sort of all these little refrains that sort of excuse this sort of, again, I hate to say it, but like pompous attitude about it, because it's like, well, they don't get any more money. Like, yes, it is a tip culture. Let's say they're working in one of the states where you don't have to pay servers minimum wage because of the tips. Like, you're sort of sitting there going, I'm very liberal, I'm high-minded, I think they deserve more pay, I think that they're overworked, I can see that they're the only server working in here, and that must be crazy. But what happened to thank you? I just think that's so, like, out of touch. And I mean, Delta, to be fair, says multiple times in multiple different podcasts, this is a first world problem. And she's right. But I think, again, it's still like, you say that, but then you go on to be like, but I think it's gone too far. It's sort of the vibe you get. I think we've still, we could still push up the service levels. I'm sorry, if my server is going to go above and beyond and I know it's not going to get them any more money unless I tip them more, like it's my choice, that's shitty. If that Michael's employee that you asked to go in the back to check for that tchotchke goes, oh, of course, it is my pleasure. I would love to go and look for you. I hope I can find it. That might make your day. And that's wonderful. And there's nothing wrong with that, And I think in Delta's mind, it's like, exactly. So what's the problem? The problem is you're in agreement that person is probably miserable at this shitty job. And you saying, it's the manager's job to train them better is nothing. That's not a solution. That's not anything. I don't care about if I watch an extra video or the manager talks to me one extra time. It just kind of boils my blood to misunderstand what these people are going through while you say that you do. And, furthermore, it's just sort of, even if they go above and beyond, not only are they not going to be compensated, it's probably not going to be noticed. Like, let's be real here. Like, if I'm going above and beyond at my little Michael's job and I'm always saying my pleasure, I'm always doting on customers, I've always got a positive attitude, maybe you're working at a magical place, and I can only pull from my experiences. So maybe for some people out there, they have gone above and beyond in their jobs, or even just met what I think Delta would say is like a basic standard of like manners and politeness in sort of this theater of manners. And I'm sure that some people would say, my manager always said like, hey, you're doing a good job, or hey, I'm really noticing that you're always going above and beyond. We really appreciate you. And so even if they don't get a pay raise, which honestly matters more, so even if they don't get that, at least they're getting the appreciation of their managers, of their higher ups. And isn't that nice? Because yeah, it is nice. They're not. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. Like, I'm not trying to make it sound like Delta is some like sheltered, and she's a drag queen of all things. Those people know how it is to work in a difficult environment. And I think that's kind of what, in some cases, gives Delta this sort of sense of understanding. And I'm not saying she couldn't understand or doesn't understand. I'm saying I think she's sort of triangulating the wrong problem here. The problem is that, like, functionally built into the job, no matter how much you bring up the service, even if you're appreciated, like, the job sucks, you're overworked, you're underpaid. Like, and it's not because of skill. I'm not saying these are actually highly skilled jobs. No, they're not. But it's not the skill that's the issue. It is the work itself. Like, it can be a very easy thing to do, but that doesn't make it an enjoyable thing to do. Or even, frankly, even effortless. Things that are easy aren't always effortless. Sometimes you do have to put in an effort, but for you, the effort is not that big of a deal. Or maybe your job is a series of menial tasks. I think for most people, getting back to my point, their managers never appreciate them. They don't say anything. And again, I think the more conservative, bootstrappy argument would be like, I shouldn't have to pat you on the back to do your job. I shouldn't have to, kiss your ass to do your... And yeah, no one's saying that you have to do that, but like, we're people. Like, we're human beings. So anyone can understand the concept of like, it's nice to feel appreciated. I don't think that's crazy. But even if that's not happening, that's fine. But I'm not being paid a living wage. So I don't know. If I was being really snarky and I was like, let's say I ran into Delta where we were both kind of on different wavelengths and like she took me as like an apathetic asshole and I took her as like an uppity, persnickety customer that was like demanding, and I was talking to my friends later about it, I would be like, this fucking bitch, yeah, you're goddamn right. I didn't say, oh, it's my pleasure, because it's not my pleasure. Because if I go in the back and I look for that thing, and I take 10 minutes searching for your one fucking tchotchke, I'm not going to get this reset done. If I don't get the reset done, I'm going to have to stay an hour just to get it done because I keep getting stopped. And my manager just yelled at me because I left a Pop-Tart wrapper, on the counter in the break room because I got called out on the walkie because someone in an aisle needed help. So I came and I helped them and I forgot about the wrapper because I was trying to do the reset. And I feel like Delta's saying, they just need more training. It's corporate's fault. Don't you blame those poor beleaguered employees. I agree. That just doesn't fit. That doesn't lock in with the logic of like, if you understand that, then you understand that training, that's saying, hey, here we provide a certain level of service, and if you're not up to snuff, what? If they're not up to snuff, you're going to fire them because they apathetically said, yeah, I'll go check. Or I'll go see if we have it. I don't care if they said it even a little huffy. Like, again, if they're outwardly rude, if they go, ugh, all right, that's one thing. But even going like, no problem, like, and shrugging their shoulders where it's like, I can tell that it is a problem. I can tell that they have an attitude about this. Oh, I'm sorry I had you do your job. Well, you fucking should be. Like, their job sucks. They work at a 7-Eleven. They've been there for 12 hours because Shelly called in again. And you telling their manager what the problem is corporate's not training them enough. That's not the problem, and it doesn't matter. Did they go and check for your thing? Did they come out and hand it to you and go, here? I don't care if they did it that way. And frankly, you shouldn't either. I think I can tell Delta is trying to do the step of, I'm going to cut this person some slack. She has a story about going to Subway, and she asks for a little mayo, and the girl behind the counter slathers mayo on. Is that rude? Is that mean? Yeah. And Delta correctly guesses, like, I bet you she's having a bad day. I bet you she's having a bad day, and I'm going to let this go. But it's kind of like, that should be your permanent default state, I feel, for most people. Because what a lot of people don't understand is, frankly, even if I'm sweet as pie to every customer and provide that standard of care, I'm still going to get a lot of assholes. And I'm sure Delta would say, like, that's their problem, that's not your problem. You can take solace in the fact that, you're doing your job at, like, a good level, at the bar level. You're meeting the expectations set for you and set for this service. And that's great and all, but frankly, even if some of my customers really respond well and are sweet as pie right back to me, that doesn't really help. They're a customer. They're going to be gone in 5 minutes. My manager has talked to me 4 times today already about the same goddamn thing, that I can't be in 2 places at once. We all have those stories of like, oh, my manager asked me to do this, but they also expect me to do that. How am I supposed to do these 2 things? And like, if we all understand that, like, that's probably what's going on behind the scenes here, I'm sorry, not having this theater of manners is just sort of it's not just like first world problem. No, I think you're being a baby. Like, I think that you kind of are being a Karen while trying to hide behind this, like, people may say I'm a Karen, but like, can't we please just draw the line somewhere? I don't buy it. I think your line is still too far. People should not have to perform happiness in jobs that we can kind of all agree are soul crushing. Unless you want to adopt that, like, conservative, like, well, then work somewhere else. These are entry-level jobs, they're not careers. Well, for some people they are. That woman's been at McDonald's for 15 years. I'm sorry that she handed you the sauces in a flippant way. I just don't know how to make myself care about something like that. Like, I understand that in the moment it can feel very like, God damn, like, what the fuck did I do to deserve this? But it's like, you know they're overworked, they're underpaid, they're constantly being, because it's not even just like, oh, I know on the job end of things, your managers are probably rude to you and X, Y, and Z. No, well, customers too. You have to deal with customers where even if you're as sweet as pie and you go, oh, I'm so sorry, but we specifically just got an email today saying that we can't take this coupon anymore. And so, like, I can't take it or I'm going to get in trouble. Well, what the fuck? We've all been there. So if we've all been there, like, I'm sorry, them being a little rude when they gave you that cup for water, or not even rude, just sort of like, here, get over yourself. If you're going to be like, what happened to service? Frankly, even again, we're not talking 5-star restaurants, but like if in chain restaurants, you're like, at these prices, that waitress didn't affect the price. And no, we're not going to do the thing where we go, well, the manager didn't affect the price either. The manager has nothing to do with that. And they're probably in just as shitty a position. You've really got to go to the corporate level for these sort of complaints to make sense. But even when Delta does go to the corporate level and, you know, people in general, like this isn't all just Delta. I'm sort of using that as like a springboard to talk about this. Even when you go to the corporate level, again, you get this like, it's about the training. We've got to get this standard of service. Fuck your standard of service. Did you get the pack of gum you wanted at the cash register? Did you hand it to the person and they scanned it and then they took your money? I don't care if they did it kind of scowling or not smiling. Do you know how often I was told, you should smile more? It's not just a woman thing. I think it's a service worker thing too. Oh, I see someone's in a bad mood. What the fuck? I've been here 8 hours. I worked at a truck stop previously. And you will not believe the way that people treated you. Subhuman. So you're damn right when someone said, do you have any more onions in the back? You ran out of the fresh condiments. You ran out of the onions. No. And I'm not going to go check. And yeah, it's not that person's fault. And like, oh my God, I can feel myself getting heated. We're at the level now where it is a two-way street. I'm not saying, oh, well, it's okay for me to do it, but don't do it to me. Absolutely. When someone says, it's not in the back, I'm not going to go, well, can you check? If they tell me it's not in the back, I'm going to choose to believe that that's just the truth. And they may sound apathetic and just absolutely done with me. And that's okay. And like, we all have our days where we're like, it's not okay. I'm going to pick this battle. But I think a lot of Delta's sensibilities, she's kind of permanently in that mode of, even if she doesn't pick every battle, she sort of takes it all in. She's sort of going, what's this about? Why is service sliding backwards? Like, why are we going backward? Because we're getting paid less and less to do these shitty jobs that there's not even, because let's even talk about another thing that would be like a motivator. Prestige. There's no prestige to working at an Olive Garden or working at a gas station or working at a McDonald's. So like that bullshit argument of, oh, why would we pay a burger flipper $22 an hour? Why would anyone become a doctor or a lawyer? Because people treat McDonald's workers like shit. Like dog shit on the street. That's why. So what the fuck are you on about? Like, of course these jobs still suck because there is no prestige to this. You know, I don't feel like I'm going to get respected. So yeah, when you come up and you ask for like, hey, I know you gave me some napkins. Can I have some more napkins? I'm not going to go out of my way to be rude, but I sure as hell I'm not going to go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Of course you can have more napkins. Here you go. You have a wonderful day. Go fuck yourself. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go, here you go, and then hand you napkins, and then walk, because I've got 6 things to do. In any sort of fast food, chain restaurant, pretty much anything below, like, a star tier, you know, it's in the middle of a major city restaurant, or like, you know, again, like a Prada or a Gucci, like a designer label. I think it's time to sort of get over ourselves and what we expect of service workers. Frankly, even if you're conservative and you go, these are not careers, they're entry-level jobs, which is bullshit, but like, even if you think that, I think you should you should honestly more agree with me and say, so yeah, like, as long as they're doing the job, like, getting the stuff on the shelves, getting the stuff to the table, you know, did I get the drink that I ordered? Is it correct? Did I get the food that I ordered? Is it correct? Cool, we're all golden. I don't need anything more. But it's this sort of noticing of these little, like, errors and manners. That just rubs me the wrong way. And if we're going to go to corporate to do anything, it should be to be more lax with people. I'll tell you a little story. So at McDonald's, when someone would order nuggets, like just a chicken nugget meal, I would say, do you want any sauce with that? My manager pulled me aside one evening, and it was pretty dead. It wasn't even busy. And we were just like doing all the cleanup stuff for the end of night. And she goes, that sneering smile. Again, this is someone who is younger than me. So it's not like, oh, well, it's the manager's fault. They're the ones in the lap of luxury that don't crack down. Crack down? You want them to crack down? Because that's really what you're asking. Asking for standards is cracking down. The standards you're asking for at the price that we're being paid and the work we're expected to do, you're damn right it is. But back to my story. She pulls me aside and she goes, Jacob, with again that like faux friendliness where it's like, we're having a rapport. It's like, no, you're admonishing me like a child for a very stupid reason. Jacob, when someone orders nuggets, you should say, do you want barbecue sauce with that? Because it saves time. Because if you say, do you want any sauce? Then they're sitting here, they're thinking of all the different sauces. Who fucking cares? Are you kidding me? Like, this is not to anyone's benefit. I don't need to be chided about this. They're both the same thing. Do you want any sauce? Do you want barbecue sauce with that? It's the same thing. Oh my God. And like, these are conversations because you'd go, that seems pretty minor. That's one conversation that makes up every day of every week of this 50-hour work week of day in, day out. Jacob, you know that you need to have your shirt tucked in, and I'm in the back washing the dishes where no one can see me. No customer could ever accidentally lay eyes on me ever at all. Jacob, put your phone away. And all I did was slide my phone out of my pocket to check the time. Just to check the time. I didn't even fully remove it from my pocket. And she's peeking around the corner every few minutes to clearly like keep an eye on like, Jacob, that phone use, Jacob, come on. And you are mad that like, oh, they just plopped the sauces in my hand. Or what happened to excuse my reach when you're putting something on the table? Well, that's what happened. That's my day. That's my day in, day out. You're one customer, and I'm sorry that you didn't have a positive experience. But, like, if your experience is, like, neutral to, like, whatever, just let it go. Just move on. I'm not saying that you can never question service workers. Of course you can. I have. And, you know, I even do it with compassion where I'll say, hey, I've done this. I know how it is. I don't want to be that person. Here's my issue. And I think we're in this culture, you know, and to Delta's credit, I think she probably would agree with me in the fact that people have this attitude on them. And, you know, we talk about service workers' attitude, and I kind of am in agreement. It's poor. It's poor to, well, aloof. You know, they don't care, which they don't make money from stocking the Michaels aisle really positively or even really well. And no one, and it's like, well, why shouldn't they do it well? Like, maybe that would help. It's like, but that's not going to do anything. Let's talk about return on investment. There's no return on that investment. If I stock it perfectly, everything in its perfect place, no one notices. And you know that. We all know that that's how it goes. No management's going to notice. No one's going to notice. Even if they notice, what do? They say one, oh, great job, Jacob. But then guess what? Oh, but also, you did forget to sweep this up. You did forget. It's like there's always an admonishment to follow it. Because people power trip, like, we're getting into complicated dynamics, but at the end of the day, it's that thing of like, okay, if the service workers have a bad attitude, what about the customer's attitude? Because there's a lot of times that I think when a customer has something that they want, or they want an employee to do something for them that's not necessarily normal. They want to return something. They want a free replacement of something. They want you to check on something. These are all fine things. And again, my issue isn't asking service workers to do something a little unusual or to help you out, because sure, they are there to do that. But it's my issue of so many people being like, they're not smiley enough about it. And their theater of manners isn't quite where it needs to be. It's like, get over that. I think customers have this mentality where they sit in their car in the parking lot. I let my car wash code expire. And it expired 2 days ago. I want them to just replace it so I don't have to buy another car wash because I forgot about this car wash. Which is my fault, but come on. It could happen to anyone. And I'm going to go in there and I want another car wash. And they're gripping their steering wheel. They're white-knuckling it, sitting in their car going. But if I go in there and I walk up and I go, hey, I'm so sorry and it's totally my fault, but I didn't use this car wash code. You know, you can check. I didn't use it. Could I just get a replacement one? If I do that, they're going to say no. And they're going to try and take me for all I have. And they're going to say no. And they're not going to do it. So I've got to go in like a bulldog. And if I go in and I'm going to slap that paper down and I go, I need a new car wash. This one's expired. then they'll have to do it. Guess what, bitch? When you walk in and you do that, and I used to work at a truck stop, and I want to tell the masses, now that I don't work there, who cares? I did this all the time out of spite. We could have given you a free car wash at any time. It was absolutely our purview. I could have given you 1,000,000 free car washes. Whenever someone stomped in, slaps their receipt on the table. This expired, and I just found it in my car, so I'm gonna need a new one. Oh, you're gonna need a new one? And I go, okay, well, that'll be $11. Well, it just expired. Yeah, I see that. That'll be $11. Well, I didn't even use it. Well, actually, we have no way to check, which is true. We have no way to check if you use this code or not, so we're gonna need you to pay again. And you could think, wow, that's kind of cunty. It's just a car wash. This is the one area where, like, I can reward or punish people for the way that I am treated. If I am treated like dirt, yeah, it's no big deal. Help another human being out. Just give him a car wash. Come on, why are you making such a big deal out of it? That seems kind of small of you. I am being treated like dog shit. And you want me to reward that person because of what happened to customer service? No. Go fuck yourself. And on the flip side, not to like sound one way about it, because certainly when people would come in and go, hey, I'm so sorry. I let this car wash expire. Can I please just get another one? And if you can't, that's totally fine. I totally understand. I'm printing off the car wash. I'm going, absolutely. It happens all the time. I'm throwing their old one away. I go, here you go. You know, it's no problem. Like, that positivity, it is like a feedback loop. And I'm sure Delta would say, we agree then, that if I'm being positive to the employees, why can't they meet like a standard of care? And I guess what I'm saying is, apathy is not, to me, not meeting a standard of care. To me, that's just fine. That's just kind of what you expect at that pay grade. To make a distinction, going in and just ordering your food and getting wait service and all of that normal stuff, having that be done with sort of a sort of laissez-faire whatever attitude, to me is very different than like, I have a request of this employee for them to do something for me that does go slightly above and beyond. You know, we're not required to print out that car wash code because you forgot. You technically did let it expire, and so that's on you. There's no reason I have to do that, or I'm even expected to do that. I can choose to do it. So in the situation where you come in with positivity and you're met with positivity, I'm sure Delta would say, like, why can't we expand that to every part of customer service? It's like, well, because every part of customer service is, hey, can you help me find this thing? I'm looking for this really specific thing. I saw it in your ad. Oh, yeah, I'll check. And then them getting pissy with you. My favorite thing was, if I'm just being neutral, like, I'm ringing up items, I'm at the register, setting them aside, and I just sort of look at the person and go, your total is $28.50. And I just say it like that. I'm not being rude. I'm not, your total's $28.50. And I just look at them. I had so many people, and they thought they were being so cunty and clever by going, oh, must have been a long day, huh? Must have been a long day. Has it been a long day? Has it been a long day? Oh, wow, you're so fucking subtle. You're so subtle. Because what they're really saying when they say that is, wow, you're being really bitchy. You're not being really peppy. You're not being peppy to me right now, you know, at 2 a.m. You're not being peppy about this transaction. You're not really making me feel like a valued customer, certainly. So I can't just say you're a bitch or you're being kind of rude or can you pep it up? I'll make it seem like I'm concerned. Has it been a long day? And my favorite, and here's my little tip for all you service workers. Here's your response. Even if it has been a long day, you go, nope, just started. I actually just started. Anyways, it'll be $28.50. Don't stone face. Don't try to bring it up to match what they're clearly expecting. Keep it down. Tamp it down and just go, no, just normal day. I just started. Just clocked in. Because they'll always go, oh, with that sort of knowing like, oh, well, then what is this? This is called, I work at a fucking gas station, is what this is called. You got your items, I told you the price. Do you want me to kiss you? Like, and of course, Delta would say like, oh no, I don't think asking for thank yous and pleases is too much. I don't think that that's too crazy. And it's like, it's not necessarily, but like, I don't know why you even notice that you're not getting that. Because if I go to McDonald's to get a burger and I got my burger. And if they mess it up, yeah, certainly you can go, well, this is the problem, is the poor service, leads to, poor results. They're not being trained properly. People make mistakes. It's not that big of a deal. You go in, you say, hey, this wasn't in the bag. Is it okay if I get one? And you go, well, I always feel like they're mad about, they're not. They're not mad about that. But you have to understand, please understand, that there have been, before you came in, 2 people that came in that you absolutely know you gave them that item. Or that item was fresh and hot right out of the fryer, and they go, my fries were cold. And they think they're so smart. It's like, oh, they want an extra helping of fries. And I remember when I worked at McDonald's, after enough times of this happening, I just started telling people, like, when they would come in and go, my fries were cold, I'd say, hey, I just put those fries, like, right from the fryer into your bag. So I know that that's a lie. And that's fine. I didn't bring the fries from home. I don't get more or less money. Food waste is dog shit as far as a topic, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care. Have all the fucking fries. Shove your gullet full of fries. I'm just going to give you the fries. But you don't have to lie. Like, you don't have to lie. You don't have to spin a story. There doesn't have to be a whole tale. Like, my car wash example. You can just go, I let it expire. Oh, my dad, you got in the hospital, and I just had to... You don't need to do a whole song and dance. I can just print you a car wash. You're actually wasting my time by trying to sort of make it seem more plausible. Like, you don't have to do all this lying. You don't have to be a bulldog. You don't have to come in like a bulldozer. Frankly, the problem is managers, but not in the way Delta thinks. The problem is when workers are treated like subhuman trash for having the gall to look apathetic about their shitty warehouse job or their bad factory or, the terrible gas station they work at. They have a gall to be apathetic that they'll ask for a manager, and the manager will usually give them whatever they want. And that, to me, is a problem. Again, we're rewarding this behavior. And I think to Delta, it's registering as like, well, people just don't know. They don't know how to act anymore. They don't know what manners are anymore. And that's our fundamental disagreement. I think they do. I think that's not the issue. The issue is the way that workers are perceived, service workers, the way that people treat them in general, and the sort of lack of human respect, this understanding that the job is kind of shitty and dirty and lowly and it's for poor people is like in the zeitgeist. I'm not saying that Delta thinks that. If that's the way that these people are used to sort of being, like that's the mode of being that they're in, with no appreciation, even when they go above and beyond, no one notices, no one cares, there's no pay raise. I don't have blame that person for making what I would call a smart decision and saying, you're going to get what you're going to get. You're going to get a neutral, regular, hey, I would like to order this thing. Okay. That'll be this amount of money. Take the money, and that's it. Hi, good morning. Good morning, welcome to McDonald's. What can I get for you today? No. Don't make them do all that. I've seen too many 15-year-old girls screamed at by fully grown men in a McDonald's to just not have more empathy for, like, if you know that, oh, well, they're probably having a bad day. But there's that undercurrent of, like, but that doesn't excuse how service has slid back. Yeah, it kind of does. Because that's pretty much every day. That's probably a lot of time of their day is shit. Just shoveling shit. So talking about more trainings and this and that, like, that doesn't fix it. That doesn't do anything. Like, just be particular. Say, I'm a picky person. I'm taking it back. I'm reclaiming it. There's nothing wrong with being picky. And if I go in somewhere and I want to be helped, I don't like when, the person isn't polite and doesn't, have their manners mind on, like, switched on. That's fine. I think it's naive. And I think it's sort of like, it's kind of what I would qualify as that's a you problem. But I do get that feeling. I understand why you would feel that. So to wrap all this up, I totally get how Delta arrived at, like, I don't like this thing. I've noticed this thing, and I don't like when people don't have manners or when they're rude or like a little snippy. I agree. I really do. But I think, her solution is wrong. I just think it's objectively wrong. Like, we all know that they're trained. People know to say thank you. They know to say my pleasure. They're just busy. They had to find a sitter for their 2 kids to cover this shift and now work a double. So they forgot that they say my pleasure instead of course, or whatever they actually said. That's what's actually happening. And so this sort of fantasy that, like, and they don't even care. Why would they care? They just work at Olive Garden. Well, if they work there, they should care. No, they shouldn't. Not with the way that they're treated, not with the way that they're paid. from top to bottom, from customer side to management side, going all directions. And same with the managers that work in store. If you want to start talking about CEOs that sit on their ass and make ridiculous policies trying to incentivize their slave wages, like, absolutely, let's shit on them. But I don't think Delta can do that, because I think the crux of what a lot of her observational comedy comes from, like, what happened to customer service? Even when I try to be polite, these people act like I'm scum of the earth. And it's like, do they, or are they just apathetic? Because I think there is a difference. Like, I'm sure that teenage boy did hand you that sauce in a very, like, flippant way. But did he do that as, like, a fuck you? And is this, like, a symptom of the problem with poor training? Or is it, that's a teenage boy working this job where everyone's constantly screaming and everyone's, you know, treating him a certain kind of way, and heaven forbid an adult is working there, because at least for a teenager it's like, oh, it's a starter job, but for an adult it's like, God, you really couldn't get anywhere else in life, and now you're throwing sauces into my hand instead of handing them to me like a fucking animal. It's like, well, I don't know, did you get the sauce? Did you get it? Is it in your hand? Like, get over it. I do love Delta though. Like, I don't want this, like, all this is just my opinion, my stance. I don't think Delta will ever see this. I don't think really anyone will ever see this. But this is just me blowing off steam. And if Delta does perchance see this, I hope she just chews on it. Like, just chew on some of these little tidbits. And, you know, take what you like and leave the rest. You know, if there's some parts that you're like, I never thought of that, then there you go. You know, that's something to take with you. You don't have to agree with me. I don't expect really anyone to agree with me. But these are my thoughts. I have a lot more thoughts on service work and a lot more work stories of times where I was deliberately cunty, or times when someone was deliberately cunty to me. Usually they go hand in hand. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. What was this? Like, what a weird topic after like a year of not making a video, or even more. It's like, this is what you return with? Not that anyone was waiting on my return. Anyways, all right, bye. Love you.